Hi, welcome to episode 7 of the Relentless Life podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Destiny.
This episode is titled Becoming Relentless from the Beginning, Part 1. In this episode, we're going to go into Destiny's childhood and life and all the events that shaped her to who she is today. She's been through quite the childhood, and I love hearing her story. So I guess we'll start at the beginning. What's the earliest memory of what home was as a kid?
Ooh. That's an interesting question because home was kind of all over for me. I I guess I'll just kind of like give a little snapshot of like my parents and whatnot. My dad was he grew up in a very interesting lifestyle. My grandma was an alcoholic when he was younger. She was sober by the time I was born, I believe, but he had some like rough stuff growing up, and same thing with my mom. She had a rough childhood as well. And my mom had experimented with like hard drugs, and my dad had not at that point. He's like smoked weed and drank or whatever. But then they met, they ended up dating, they had me, and my dad ended up starting to do meth with my mom. And it was downhill from there because my dad was, he had like meth induced schizophrenia. I don't know exactly when that started, but he was violent, he was abusive when he was on drugs. It just wasn't good. My mom was a stripper, and they ended up breaking up when I was 1. So my dad had me. I don't remember this, but my family told me this story. My dad had me at one point, and he had a warrant out for his arrest, I think, and he hitchhiked with me and made it to Amarillo. So from Washington, made it to Amarillo, and my skin was wind chapped. I had lice crawling all over my head. This is what everyone told me. It was like really bad. And he went to a shelter to ask if they had like a bottle or something for me. I think I was like a year old, maybe 9. I don't know. I was little. And they ended up calling the cops because it was like a really weird, suspicious situation. Like, why is this man coming in here with this baby? And so my dad ended up getting arrested, and I got put in foster care. And they called my mom, and they're like, she's in a temporary home. If you don't come and get her in the next like 24 hours, she's going into the system.
This was in Amarillo?
Amarillo, yeah.
Where was he going? What was his plan? Do you know?
I actually don't. I need to ask him that because I really don't know what he was. I think maybe he was trying to get us to Florida, maybe to my uncle's.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, he was crazy. My dad was crazy. God bless him. But so then from there, I think my mom and my aunt figured it out, ended up getting me, but my dad was like, my family's very, my dad's side of the family is very protective of the children. They like, I'm just gonna say I've seen my grandma do some crazy stuff to make sure that the kids don't get placed with people they shouldn't be with. And so my they kind of threatened my mom, like, you're not gonna have your daughter staying with us, like she belongs with her dad, which for better or for worse, I don't know. Like, my dad was messed up, my mom was messed up, so I think I actually fared better with my dad's family at the time, though. And so I was kind of bounced around at that point. My dad got married and had my sister with my stepmom, my first stepmom, and I lived with her family a little bit, and I was really close with them. I always looked at them like my own family. And I mean, we'll kind of get to that. There's some trauma there too, but and then my aunt on my dad's side, I lived with her sometimes, and I lived with my grandma. So I was I bounced around quite a bit depending on like the state that my dad was in. If he was good, I was with him. If not, if he was in prison or whatever, I was kind of all over the place. So
there's never really a stable home.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say so, to be honest. Like, I think all the adults in my life tried really hard to create stability for me. Um, but I got really good at being like a chameleon. Like, wherever I needed to be or whoever I needed to be in whatever house I was at, that's kind of where I would just slip into. I don't know. So I think that's a reason it's hard for me to have roots, because I've never really felt like I had roots, you know?
Hmm. So you were talking about your dad marrying your first stepmom.
Mm-hmm.
So so we can kind of move on from there. You had a sister,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens next?
I'll just kind of go into this. I have two brothers from my mom that were born before me. My parents had me. Parents broke up. My mom had my sister with another guy, and then my dad, a year or two after that, my dad got remarried and had a baby with my ex stepmom Emily, and she and I were really close. Out of all my siblings, I saw her the most, I think. And then in 2001, she got into a car crash with my stepmom. My dad was in prison at the time. They were still married. And my sister died. So
Were you living with your stepmom while your dad was in prison?
I wouldn't say I really lived with my stepmom as much as I lived with her mom. So my grandma Sue.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I would live with my other grandma and my aunt. So I don't really know like who I lived with. I know I had a bedroom at my grandma Jackie's house, my biological grandma, and I had a bedroom at my grandma Sue's house as well, my step grandma. And I didn't really have a room at my aunt Tina's house, but I did share a room with my cousin. So yeah.
Okay. So so she got in the car accident. How did you find out about that? Like how soon?
Yeah, it's kind of blurry. Like I remember it, but it was just a weird time. I remember because I was only 7, or 6. I think I was 6.5, so I was like almost 7. And I remember
She was 1 or 2?
she was 2, turning 3. Yeah, and I remember I was I was in the car with my aunt and my uncle, and I remember my aunt talking, and I just remember her voice getting weird, and at this point I hadn't really had anyone like die in my life, so I don't know why my first thought was someone's dead, because I definitely have that now, that anxiety, which makes sense because I've lost so many people. But looking back on it, I don't know why at that age I was already like somebody died. Like I already had that anxiety, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I remember she sat me down. My aunt took me into her house and sat me down and told me that Daisha had passed away. And I was just confused. I didn't really understand. I was like, what? And I remember at some point going with my grandma to pick my stepmom up from the hospital. And I remember my stepmom running out of the hospital with Daisha's blanket, just crying. Like, it's so sad to think about. And getting in the car, and I just didn't know what to say to any of the adults. Like, I really didn't know how to respond or react, you know?
Mm-hmm. So so how did your dad? How did that go? Like, did you have to go tell him? Did you guys call him in prison or what?
Yeah, so that was actually like, it's really sad when I think about it. He was in prison about an hour away or so, and I remember it was night, or I don't know if it was night. In my memory, it was night, and it was not during visiting hours. They allowed us to have a special visit to tell him, and he knew something was wrong, And I remember um, going there and like hiding behind my grandma because I was like scared of his reaction. Like I didn't know what. It was a weird time for me because I was just like I didn't know how to feel, and I was dealing with my emotions, but none of the adults in my life could really like help me because they were like lost in their grief, you know?
Yeah. So, did Emily go with, or was it just you and your
It
grandma?
was just me and my grandma.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did he take the news? Obviously, that's terrible news to get.
I can't remember. I just remember being scared, like that. Not that he was gonna like be mad at me or anything, but I was just scared. Like I didn't know how he was gonna
To see his
react.
reaction.
Yeah, and I don't really remember much beyond that. I remember during the funeral they allowed him to come. It was it was really weird, and I remember he had shackles on. He had a waist shackle with handcuffs, and his feet were shackled. And he had two prison guards with him, or cops. I don't know who they were, but I can't really remember. And I remember nobody was allowed to touch him. So like he was bawling his eyes out, and he could barely wipe his his tears away. And it's just really sad to think about. He and I was the only person who was allowed to touch him. So I went and sat. I remember at one point I went and sat on his lap, and I was like, hugging him and stuff. But it was like a really hard time because you have to think like your child just died, and like you're not. I feel like I'm gonna cry. It's just sad to think about,
Yeah. So, do you think, is that one of the earliest memories you have as far as um, the adult role models in your life, like not being able to regulate emotions and like you kind of learning that behavior from
them. Yeah.
that time? Like,
I
would you say
mean,
that's like one of the earliest you can think of, probably?
yeah. I think there was times before that and I would like to preface this like I don't think that I was like severely abused. I think there's definitely times in my life where adults could have handled things better. Um Emotionally abusive and like stuff like that, and but I don't know why in my mind I remember just there was times from different adults in my life where like actually before Daisha died that I felt like I had to protect Daisha from the wrath of others, and the I remember there was a particular situation where Daisha was coloring on the walls, and somebody who's watching us like was like screaming at her, and I remember I like went and held her, and I was like kind of stood in front of her, and I don't know why I really felt like I had to do that, but I think it just went with like none of the adults in my life really did know how to emotionally regulate. And then I felt that even more after she died because I didn't know how to deal with my emotions, and nobody was really there to like help me with that. I remember my aunt did like she took a bath with me, and I remember we were just sitting there, and she was talking about when she because she was pregnant with twins at one point, and she ended up losing them really far along in the pregnancy, so it was really traumatic for her. So she was sharing that experience with me, and that's like really the only memory that I have of people really trying to, because I think everyone else was just so lost in their own grief and too close to it that nobody could really sit and talk and help me sort out my emotions.
Yeah.
So I'd say that wasn't the first time that I had that, like where I started to realize that, but that was definitely like a big moment where I was like, well, I don't know how to deal with these emotions, and nobody's teaching me.
Okay, so let's pick up from after the funeral. What happened between your dad and Emily at that point?
I think that Emily couldn't really forgive herself, and I don't think my dad could either, like forgive her. I think that it and with him being gone as well, I just don't think the marriage could survive that. And so it did fall apart. And I can't really say how long he was in prison, but during that time he started talking to somebody that he knew from his childhood, Kimberly. And I believe that they got divorced. I believe Emily and my dad got divorced while he was in there, because
Okay.
he still had to be in there for like maybe another 2 years or something. I don't know the time frame, but he was in there for a little while. And so then when he got out, he started dating Kimberly.
Okay. And that was. So he was on drugs when he went to prison.
Mhm.
Obviously, drugs are probably harder to get while you're in there. So he's.
I don't know, actually. I think it's easier.
Okay. Okay. So he's out. He's still on drugs, right?
No, when
Correct?
he got out,
Oh.
he was not on drugs.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Kimberly was a drug addict, though.
So he went right back to it when they got together, or
No, he stayed clean, I think, for a while, but it was actually really unfortunate and sad. So my dad got out on work release. Work release is where you can work and you still have to be at jail at night, but you can work and then you can have little like visits with your family and stuff. So
Do you make money while you're working? Okay.
yeah.
So it's a real job, basically.
Yes. And so he was working at Izzy's, the pizza place. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
Okay. And I was so excited to have my dad back because I felt like I had gone through this like gauntlet of life. And he got out and started dating Kimberly. And I remember she had a daughter, Wishy, who's my sister, and she was a little younger than me, like 2 years younger than me, and we liked each other enough, like we played and stuff. And I remember like they'd be in the bedroom, whatever, and we whatever, and we would like try to booby trap the door, whatever, this and that. But I remember being really severely disappointed because it felt like I thought I was gonna have my dad back, and I had all these expectations of him, and then he got out and just had like another focus, beside me, and so that was kind of rough. And then really fast, it felt like she ended up getting pregnant. I guess it wasn't super fast because I think when I was probably 8, so I guess 2 years later they got pregnant, but they ended up I don't know, I feel like my time frame's a little bit messed up, because I was kind of thinking they got pregnant right away, but that couldn't have been the case. So yeah, but they definitely, it was hot and heavy and fast, and so it just felt like, again, I was kind of alone again.
Yeah. And then his focus is on this other woman, and then they get pregnant, so his focus is other woman and new baby now. And so you kind of just feel neglected a little bit.
Yeah, I think, to be honest too, is Kimberly was a very toxic relationship for my dad. My dad, for the first time ever, was really trying to do life right, and I remember he'd always quote the Bible, like, spare the rod, spoil the child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, he'd have that principle with me, but Kimberly wouldn't allow him to punish Wishy the same way. So there was this really unfair dynamic in the house.
So then you start building resentment towards her, which is not her fault, but...
Yeah. And I was just sad because it just felt like I didn't have my dad and I didn't have a mom. And Wishy got both.
Where was your mom at during this time? You had no relationship with her at that point?
Yeah, so my grandma and my dad made it very apparent and clear to my mom that she was never going to be able to fight for me and win. And so my mom never really tried, which, again, like I said, like, I probably was better off in that time because my mom was a little bit of a different type of drug addict. I don't know. My dad was also crazy, but I think at the end of the day, my dad would always make sure that if he was kind of going crazy, that I'd be somewhere safe, at my aunt's or my dad or my grandma's or whatever. Whereas my mom kind of had drug her kids through that time, so my brothers had to see a lot more than I think that I did with on that side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, she wasn't superly overly involved in my life. I did know her. I didn't really necessarily have a relationship with her. She would come to some of my birthdays. I'd say I'd spent maybe two or three like extended periods of time, like 2 weeks or something with her until the age of 10. So I remember one time being at one of her houses. It was very much, they were cracked out, and I spent maybe a week there. And I just remember there was just drug addicts everywhere. I smoked a cigarette. I was 7. Yeah. My brothers tricked me into watching a porn, and then they told me, because it was called People's Choice, and they're like, oh yeah, that's People's Choice. They chose Snow White, blah, blah, blah. So they said it was a Disney movie. And I was in the living room, and so they put it on and ran away. And so my mom woke up because she had passed out, and she woke up and she's like, turn this shit off. And because I didn't understand I was like, what is this show? Like, I was so confused, And
that young, your brain doesn't really process what's
well, I
going
thought
on,
maybe it was like a weird commercial, because I'm like, okay, it's gonna get to the Snow White soon. It was only on for like 5 minutes or something, but it was really weird. And my brothers thought it was funny, but that's just to go to show like where they were growing up. Like they weren't much older than me, and they already had this like deep understanding of all that,
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember I smoked a cigarette, and like the cops showed up to the neighbor's house, and they had us turn all the lights off, and we were hiding behind a mattress for like 15 minutes because they were scared. They had warrants. So it was like, I'm glad I wasn't, as much as, yeah, I would have loved to have my mom more involved in my life in those early years. I don't think that it would have been good for me or her, So I'm glad that because the snapshots I had of that were not good. Yeah.
Okay, so we have your dad and Kimberly together.
Mm-hmm.
She's pregnant. Let's keep moving on from there.
Okay. So she has my brother, Donnie. I was 10 at this point. He was born in 2004. So maybe I was 9, about to turn 10, 9.5. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she gets pregnant with him. They get married. I'm probably messing some of this up, but whatever. At some point they get married. I want to say she's pregnant when they're getting married, but I'm not quite sure. And yeah, I remember when my brother was born, I remember taking care of him a lot when he was a baby. I remember having like I don't really know where any of the adults were, to be 100% honest. I think at this point my dad had relapsed, and that was a hard time because I had to really watch. That was the first real time that I had started seeing my dad. Like, I was starting to understand that my dad was not okay. Because when I was younger and he was on drugs, he would do things like the secret decoder man, where we would take toilet paper and try to decipher what super secret decoder man was saying on the toilet paper. But that felt like a game to me as a kid. Whereas at this point, when he started getting like really weird, I was starting to be like, my dad's not okay. Like, something's wrong.
Yeah. So that just starts piling on top of the trauma of emotional regulation, and then now I don't think any kid should ever have to worry about their parent being okay. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so
Well, oh, sorry.
no, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I think that from a very, very young age, I had to start to realize that there was really no adults that were emotionally safe for me. Um, like everybody in my family is just kind of doing the best they can, and like I'm not perfect as a parent, but that's something we're working on too. Is just like because when I think about it, so there was a moment like my grandma when I was 5, I was being a brat. I don't know what I was doing, but I was being a brat, and she was like basically told me like I'm leaving you here at this grocery store. I can't do this with you anymore. Blah blah blah. I didn't know she had already called my aunt and told her that I was going to be at the grocery store, and then she parked right, like I couldn't see her, but she could see me. So I was never in any physical danger. But I thought I was all alone. Like I was really scared. I got left at this grocery store, and she left me there. And I'm sitting there thinking, do I find another family? I don't know what the heck, like what to do. And probably like 3 or 4 minutes went by, and my aunt rolls up like pissed off. She opens the door and she's like, "Get in." And I was like crying. And that was a really hard situation. But that didn't hit me until we were at Disneyland, and Hadley got lost for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So I was 5 at that time, and Hadley got lost. Hadley was 6, turning 7. And so she was older than I was at that point. And Hadley got lost for just a second because we went into this building in Disneyland, and there's a crowd of people. Well, she just like saw someone else, thought it was me,
You
and
guys were
started following.
probably never more than like 10 feet apart. You were
Well,
in
she
here,
actually
she
walked back outside. That's where I
Oh,
lost her. So
okay.
she started following this person. I turn around thinking she was between me and the one of the other kids, and I'm like, "Where is she?" And I'm looking and I'm freaking out. And I talked to the staff member. I'm like, and they were great, by the way. The Disneyland staff members are great. So he starts yelling out what she's wearing, and she had walked back outside thinking that I was still outside, and that's where she got lost. And so and it was only like 2 minutes, but I'm like running around, and the staff member says, "We found her," because she's in a princess dress, and she was crying, and I remember looking at her, and I was just thinking like I just can't imagine like being so mad at my kids that I wanted to like cause them that feeling, And I realized like how much that like affected me from a young age, And so I didn't really, because I've always told that story like haha trauma, but that moment when I saw the look on Hadley's face, like she was just so scared, I just like couldn't imagine leaving her. And like purposefully inflicting that on her,
Yeah. Yeah. That's really hard. Okay. Where were we at? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Um,
You're like, this is awkward. You're
no,
crying.
no. I get it. I understand.
So yeah, I was just talking about like how, like even from that young of an age, I just felt like I had to protect my emotions and realize that like the people around me weren't necessarily equipped to raise a emotionally healthy child,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think I was thinking that deeply about it, but I was thinking of it like I have to protect myself. So then as I got older and my dad started using, I remember there was another moment that is very sticks out in my mind of going into my stepmom and my dad's bathroom and finding an Altoid can, and it had some weed in it, and it had a little bag of meth in it, and I knew exactly what it was, and I remember thinking I need to flush this so that they can't get high, and I thought I could control that. And at 9 years old, like just like also like thinking about Lila, like thinking about her having to think that she has to take care of or control the situation, which obviously I had no control over the situation. But I thought that, like, if I flushed the drugs, that they weren't going to be able to get high, and that my dad would, I don't know, stop doing drugs. I didn't really think that through, you know?
So at 9, you knew what meth looked like? I don't think I know what meth looks like now, but had you seen it before, or did you just find it and kind of know?
I don't think I had really seen meth before. I'm trying to think.
The only reference I have is Breaking Bad, and I've heard it's not actually blue, so
I've never seen
I'm
blue
lost.
meth, to be honest.
I'd be lost.
I actually don't know. I think that I just knew it wasn't weed because
Okay.
I knew what weed was. I knew what weed smelled like, and I knew it wasn't weed, and so I assumed it was meth because I knew my dad had done meth.
Okay.
And so I just figured that, like, that was what was making him crazy, you know?
So do you think that was kind of a turning point in your life where you decided that you needed to take control of your surroundings?
That was a big moment for me because I actually have done like some soul work trying to think back to my earliest memory of when did I start trying to control things that were out of my control, and that is my first memory that I can really remember, where I was trying to be a control freak. Yeah, like I was trying to control my dad's using, which I couldn't, but in my head I was like, if I throw these drugs away, like my life's gonna get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that's where it started. And I remember another really, a memory that really sticks out to me. My dad's meth-induced schizophrenia was crazy. I mean, like, I could tell you stories and stories and stories about how, like, his mind worked and how he thought that, weird stuff, man. Like, he thought that the workers at Winco after midnight were like aliens, and they were like bringing things. Yeah. And so, like, at one point, I remember when he was clean and sober, we found a bunch of writing of his, and it was like he was like making these covenants, like, you shall not do this, and your family will stay safe, and this, if I do this, and like weird stuff. But his brain was just so whacked out of reality.
Could probably make a good like sci-fi adventure movies out of the stuff that went on with. In
No,
his
literally,
head.
I think my dad would be a really good, like, that's what he loves, sci-fi too, so that his brain kind of works like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could write some crazy movies just based off of his delusions.
It's already written down. You just have to.
Yeah. But another memory was of during this time, like I said, like there just wasn't a lot of, and I was just seeking one-on-one time, like quality time with my dad. I missed it. I missed my dad being normal. And I remember he said, "Hey, you want to go get some KFC?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was so excited. We didn't talk on the way there, but I was like hoping like the conversation was going to spark up. And we got home, and he like put the car in park, and I was like, I'm gonna sit in the car until he's done talking, until he's not done talking, but gets out of the car, because I wanted a moment. I was like searching for a moment, and I remember he looked over at me and he's like, "I hate you," and I was like, so lost, like a pit in my stomach. I was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "You're not my real daughter. You are a clone from the government, and I know that my mom is working with them, and I want my daughter back." And so, like, at first it was like a gut punch, but then it was like, oh shit, like my dad is freaking whacked out.
This was like 10 or 12.
No, I was like 9 still.
9 still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, my dad's not okay. And I knew right from that moment. I remember just a distinct feeling like I cannot trust my dad, and I cannot trust any of the family members around me.
That's hard.
Yeah. But not like
Can't
physically,
imagine.
because my dad
Yeah.
never put me in physical danger. Like, even when he thought I was not his real daughter, like he never tried to hurt me or do anything crazy. But emotionally, I was like not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're with He's with Kimberly still at this
Mhm.
point. You have just Donnie now,
Yes.
and okay, so and then he's back on drugs, obviously.
Yeah.
How much longer did their relationship last?
So, I feel like I have to say too, during this time, my mom's getting clean and sober, I think.
Okay.
So that's, yeah, during this time, my mom's getting clean and sober. So I did start visiting her maybe around this time. Um, so my sister and I got taken out of their home at that point because my dad was so bad.
You and Wishy.
Somebody called CPS. We got taken away from them. And I think we went with my grandma. We were kind of back and forth between my aunt and my grandma. And I remember my dad, my grandma saying that I needed to testify against my dad. Yeah. And at this point, they're still together. Kimberly and my dad were together for a while past that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my grandma saying I needed to testify against him so that he could get help. And I don't know if I still to this day feel weird about that. Because when I did it, I remember the look of betrayal on my dad's face. And it was like really hard moment for me. And I feel like I'm going to spend this whole thing crying. This is weird. I just feel like I betrayed him in that moment, but I really just looked at it like he needed to get help. And that's what my grandma said, but I do remember that look on his face, and it was like really hard. Because I did feel like I was like doing something wrong, but I was trying to do what's right.
That's hard when you have adults trying to split your.
Yeah, and I really don't know what the right decision was,
Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah.
So you testified against him. Did he
Mhm.
get help at that point? Like
I don't
is that
really
what she was-
remember at this point, but I know behind the scenes, I'm fast forwarding a couple years. I lived with my grandma and my aunt back and forth during this time, and behind the scenes, my mom was getting clean and sober. She got married in 2006. I was involved in her wedding. I started to actually go and visit her more and like have a better relationship with her.
This was Brian, right?
Mhm.
I've never met him, but I've heard the.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was living with my aunt. I went to a school and we had just gone to Disneyland. We got back that day. We went to school's clothes shopping on the way back from Disneyland in Mount Shasta. And we got home at like 1 o'clock in the morning, went to bed. My aunt woke me up and said, "Hey, I thought school started tomorrow. It starts today. Alex is out waiting for the bus," which was our neighbor. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So I like rush and get dressed. And I was so excited because I was going to the same school for 2 years in a row, which I never really did growing up because I was always moving around. And I get to school. I hear over the loudspeaker, like, this is the very end of the day. And I remember I had a summer boyfriend. We broke up, so there was a little drama there. I saw him, and I called him a dick. And I remember that everyone laughing at me because I said dick. And I don't know. It was, like, really weird. Yeah. and so it was, like, not a bad day, but it was, like, a weird first day. And I was still getting my footing. But I was so excited to just know everybody at the school. And, like, it was my first day of 6th grade, too. So I felt like I was older. I'm, like, and I get over the loudspeaker, "Destiny, your mom is here for you." And I remember looking over my friend and saying, "They always think my aunt is my mom. I don't know why they do that." And I get up to the front desk, and the front desk lady, I see my mom, and I'm like, "Oh, hey." And my mom's best friend at the time, Mandy, she was like one of my childhood, like she was like family to us, but I see them and I'm confused, and I look at the front desk lady like almost just for some clarity, like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "You're gonna go move with your mom, is that great?" And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" And I start cussing and I'm screaming at her, and I'm so angry because I'm like, I don't even have like, I barely have ever known you in a like setting where I spend like big amounts of time with you, you know? And during this time, I had spent a lot more time with her because she had been getting clean for the last couple years. But I just felt so betrayed. I'm like, no, this is where, you know, like, and she lived 2 hours away in a place I didn't really know anybody.
This is when she lived in Eugene?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
And
yeah,
so
she's taking you
I
different state.
I went into my aunt's house and I started waking my family up, my sister, and they were all still passed out because my aunt would sleep till like 3 or 4 in the or in the afternoon, and they were weird. But I remember waking them up and I'm like, bye, I guess I'm never going to see you guys again. Like, I'm leaving. And my aunt's like, what? And my aunt goes out there and she's like, you can't fucking take her. You know, like, you can't do this. What the hell? My aunt's trying to fight for me. And my mom's like, well. And so basically what happened, she went to court for me and my dad didn't show up.
Oh.
Yeah. And so she just won by default. And so I just, like, had to go with her. I'm like, what the heck? So I go to Eugene. I pack whatever I could. And
she already had both your brothers and Alex with
Mhm.
her, living
Yep.
with her? Okay. So were
Yep.
you excited about that part? Like, to reconnect with those
I wasn't
siblings?
excited about any of it.
Okay.
I guess I was excited, like, and my sister, she told me that, like, when I would come and visit, because during that time I did visit a lot more. Like, I had built a relationship with my mom. I had never lived with her like that. And so it was a shock to me. And it was a lot in one day. And it just added to that instability that I was always feeling. And again, I had to go be the new kid at a new place with nobody that I knew. And I remember my sister telling me that when I would leave, when I'd go visit during the summer and stuff, she would cry. Like, she really, so I think that there was a level of excitement to go be around my siblings, but I don't think I was excited really in that moment. I think it was clouded by just I was pissed. I was so sad and just but yeah.
Okay, so we are like 12 or 13 now? Is that where we're at?
I think I'm
when
like
you going
11 or something.
11. Okay. And so now you're in Eugene with your mom and her new husband, right? And your siblings. How did that start to, like, transpire? Like, so you're living there. How was, after you get over the frustration and, like, sadness, you start to settle in? Did you enjoy it at
So I start to settle in, and I'm at an actual middle school now because the school that I was going to, the secondary school was 5th and 6th grade. And so it was kind of a weird thing. So this one was like an actual middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I have, like, you know, whatever. They had choir, and I was like so excited to be in choir because I always sang and stuff like that. So I was, like, settling in. I really liked my English teacher. I was really good at English. You know, I wasn't doing poorly in school at all. I remember I started, like, getting a little more preppy. I, like, my mom went and bought me a bunch of, like, Hollister clothes, and that was the first time I had ever gotten any, like, preppy clothes or anything like that. And I was like, okay, like, my style's changing, you know, so I felt like I kind of had to reinvent myself. But I was also very susceptible at that point because I wanted to fit in, you know? And my brother Andrew, he was already kind of doing bad stuff. My brother Josh I want to actually say my brother Josh was in juvie at this point when I moved there.
Oh.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe or maybe not. I think he had gotten locked up. So he was in juvie. So my brother, they were still, even though my mom got clean and sober, they were still definitely dealing with just the aftermath of, like, raising kids and, you know, trap houses and, like.
They picked up a lot of bad behavior from that life.
Yeah. So my brother was 15 and he was already just doing the most, you know. I think he had chased a kid around with a knife and stole my parents' car, and I mean, just he had already done a bunch of stuff, and he was doing meth, and so he was already locked up. So the whole time I was in there, Or from the time I moved there, I don't think he ever got out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're settling in.
Mhm.
You're preppy now because you're in Eugene, Oregon.
Kind of.
You got Hollister
I
clothes.
tried to be preppy.
What's and then not everybody knows, but most people that know you know what happens in your early teens. What
This is where it
happened?
gets wild.
What happened? What transpired to go from like happy with your mom who's clean and sober and your little sister to the
The life I was living.
yes.
I think it was just little things, little decisions. I started hanging out with my brother a lot. We would not run away. We would sneak out at night and just do stupid delinquent stuff. Steal people's lawn ornaments, raid their gardens. Just kind of mess up when you think about it. When you're an adult and as a kid, you just don't get it. We'd kick like the sprinklers at the middle school, and they would like make like these crazy glacier things. And we just run around, do whatever, you know. And then I remember at one point my brother ran away, and I felt really betrayed because I felt like that was like my partner in crime, and I think that was like the first time I was like, oh, like we could just run away, like we just leave.
And in the meantime, Alex is just the good little girl at home. Like
Yeah, Alex was a good kid, and I mean, and my mom was doing everything right. She was taking us to youth group. I was really involved with my youth group, and that youth group was very impactful to me at Jubilee. I just think, and I can't really pinpoint where it went wrong, and I think that's what scares me because it feels like you could do everything right as a parent, and still your child just goes down this horrible path, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it was a family curse because when I look at my mom's life, she had never told me about her life at that point. I didn't really know. I did everything she did. Everything that she had done, I had done. And I think that's why I've held a lot of fear for our kids because I'm like, it was insane. Like she was in a riot at juvie. I held a riot at juvie. I didn't even know that until after. It was like, she ran away, I ran away. She did this, I did that. And like, we could go through and check all the boxes. Like we went through the same stuff. So that I've held a lot of fear about that. But what I think it is like, it was a generational curse. You know, I broke that and that's not going to be like our kids' future. And so, but, at this point, I mean, I just start by doing little things. I'm angry, and again, I don't have any emotional regulation skills. Nobody's teaching me how to be better, and I start getting in fights and getting involved in a lot of drama and sneaking out to go to parties and stuff like that. And I remember I got kicked out. I mean, I remember one time I walked into the school. And this is weird. They didn't even do anything. I went into the principal's office and I was like, I have a hit list and I'm bringing a gun to school and I'm going to shoot everybody. And they're like, yeah, Destiny, okay. Like, they just didn't care. I don't know. And that's so weird because actually, you know, Kip Kinkle, you know him?
No.
Is that his name? Kip Kinkle? The Thurston High School shooter.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the name.
He was a mass shooter back in the 90s.
In Springfield?
Springfield, Oregon.
Oh.
And so, like, everybody, I think it was the 90s. I don't know. I'm probably leaving out things. It's been a while since I've talked about him. But that happened so close to home. Like, they don't mess around. Like, I remember my brother saying something about a gun he went to the same high school, Thurston High School, and they, like, arrested him or something.
Oh, yeah. I know.
So I just thought that was so weird.
Our
They didn't even get me in trouble.
You couldn't really say much about that. Like, they took it pretty... Even where I went to school, which there had never been school shooting there, but people took that very seriously.
Yeah, that's why it shocked me that they didn't do anything. I guess they just thought I was the little boy who cried wolf. But I remember I beat this girl up. Her name was Sophie. And I ran off campus. Ended up getting expelled because they were just kind of done with me. They didn't really know what to do at that point. They had tried to do everything they could to help me. and they decided I was going to go to military school with my brother. And I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved military school. But at that point, I was already on just like such a bad path, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I was just smoking weed. I hadn't been drinking yet. I remember I had like had a wine cooler, but I had never gotten drunk. At this point, I'm in 6th grade. I go into military school. I get kicked out of military school. I was really sad. So they let me back in 7th grade. And I got kicked out again. And I think once I got kicked out again, that's when I really started to feel I don't know, just incorrigible. I felt like I couldn't change. Like I felt like
Like, why try? Like, you feel like you're heading down the path, like...
Well, I just felt like everybody gave up on me, you know? But what I was really doing was self-sabotaging to prove that everybody was going to give up on me. Mm-hmm. I'd make them give up, and then I'd be like, see? Like, everyone gives up on me. Mm-hmm. And so...
this is about this time is when you start running away to live in Eugene.
And I can't remember why I ran away, but I remember my brother taking me downtown. And I think my brother kind of idolized the times that he did run away, because he was gone for like a month or two, and I was really sad. And I remember he brought me a jacket home, like this long coat. I don't know. And I was so happy when he's home, but I remember him kind of idolizing the whole time, and I could see it changed him a little bit. Like it was a different vibe. And he took me downtown, and I remember just thinking like, this freedom. I felt free. And I think that was the first time I was like, I think I want to run away. Like, I think I want to go be on my own. And so I remember when I got kicked out of the PICO, Pioneer Youth Corps of Oregon, I got kicked out of it for the second time. And they put me in the school, Kelly Middle School, which was like the preppy, rich school. Like, everybody had a laptop. Like they assigned you a MacBook. Like, so you had your own MacBook. You couldn't take it home, but like you checked it out and you take it to all your classes.
Okay. It
was totally different than my middle school that I went to before that. Okay. And everybody was like super preppy. And I remember going there, and at this point, I wore like an Under Armour long sleeve shirt with a white t-shirt over it, that ball chain necklace. And then I'd have my hair straight and black. And sometimes I put a bow in it. It was a very confusing style. I don't know. And I remember I'd like challenge all the guys to push-up contests. And I think I only went there for like 3 weeks. And I, in that time, stole like the most popular girl in school's boyfriend, turned everybody against each other, started like this mass drama, and got kicked out. Yeah. Okay. In like 3 weeks. It was like crazy. And I remember one of my friends, she was my cousin's friend, because my cousin went there. And she was like, I remember them all just telling me like, I'm so disappointed, because my cousin went there, I immediately got in with all the cool girls. And I remember...
Is this your cousin Amber, right?
No.
Oh.
She's way older than me.
Oh, okay.
My cousin Mackenzie, you never met her.
Okay.
It was Brian's niece.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I got in with all the cool girls, but I just felt like I didn't really fit in, because I just came from military school. I was really edgy, and I wanted validation from everybody, and I got that whatever way I could. I don't know. And drama felt good to me, because it made me feel like I had attention. And so I turned that whole school upside down, and I remember feeling remorseful. And I remember this girl, Aubrey, who I'm actually friends with her on Facebook. Well, I remember her just saying like, we don't like this. Like, we're just so disappointed in you. Like, we liked you and we tried to give you a chance, and you just like totally just started like this whole like war, you know? I can't remember the whole thing, because I think I wrote letters to people that they were gonna, I don't know exactly what I did. It was just crazy middle school drama. But I remember her telling me that she was disappointed. And from that point, I was like, oh my gosh, like I just, like, they really did give me a chance and I just screwed it up. But then that went to that kind of poor me mentality where it's like, see, nobody cares. Like, everybody will let me down and everybody will leave me. And so I remember after that is when I was like, screw it, I'm going to run away for the first time. And I ran away and I'm trying to think who I found first. I just ended up finding some street friends. They took me in and, yeah, from there I was just like living on the streets. And I remember the first time I got drunk, I got shit-faced drunk and I tried to lose my virginity to some random guy who he pissed himself. We were so drunk, he pissed himself, and the cops were like, you know that you're trying to go home with this guy, and he's like literally has urine all over him. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I remember the cops let me go, and I walked away. And I remember just telling myself, act sober, act sober, act sober. And I walk away, and yeah, and from that moment on, I was like, once I got that taste of just being completely free, it was game over.
Yeah. So then you ended up living on the streets for 3 years, 4 years,
No.
3 years.
No,
No.
I was only on the streets in the year. Well, I started 2007. I ran away during Christmas time. I was gone for maybe like 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
And I remember on Christmas, I got really sad, and there was nobody on the streets. And I found a payphone, and I called my dad, and I was like, I think I want to go. Like, can you come pick me up? I want to come home. And so my dad came, drove 2 hours away, picked me up, and I went and spent Christmas with my family. And then I missed the street life, and so I ran away again.
So how'd you get from Vancouver back to Eugene at that, like, by yourself?
That's a freaking funny story. So my grandma, I was just feeling really depressed, and I wanted to go back to Eugene. And my grandma was like, I was at my grandma's shop, and you remember my grandma's shop, right? Mm-hmm. So she was originally in that front one, and there's Carl's Jr. right there. Yeah. I was like, hey, Grandma, can I have some Carl's Jr.? She's like, yeah. She gave me a couple bucks. And I remember I was going to go get Carl's Jr., but I saw the bus coming. Mm-hmm. And so I just like, I'm going to go to Eugene. I'll figure it out. So and this is 2 hours away. I'm 13 years old. I hop on that bus. It gets me to Jansen Beach. I'm like, hey, how do I get to Jansen Beach? He gets me to another bus. I get to that bus. I had $2 in my pocket. And I remember I get to Portland, and now I'm like, okay, well, I had to figure out, how do I get on a Greyhound or something, you know? And I don't know where the Greyhound is. We don't have cell phones at this point. Like, there's no cell phones or anything. And so I'm like, I find these guys, and this guy's like, hey, I have a car, or my girlfriend or my sister or somebody has a car. I'm like, okay. So they tell me I can go up to their apartment or whatever. And I told them I was 17. So they knew I was still underage regardless. And they were in their 20s or 30s. I don't know. And they're smoking weed with me, and we're getting a little drunk. And I remember thinking the vibe got weird, so I stopped. And the one guy just kept trying to like get with me, and he was like putting down like $20 bills, like, would you do it for this much? Would you do it for this much? And I'm like, no, I don't want to have sex with you. And I remember the other guy like kind of ended up like kissing my neck, and I felt really awkward, and I was like, eh. So long story short, he like basically was like trying to rape me, because I was like, no, I don't want to. And finally I kicked him off, and he's like, damn, like, what? I don't remember exactly what he said, but something kind of rude, like, you're like prude or something. And I remember I grabbed all the money and ran out, and I was like, I called them some derogatory names. And so then I'm still wandering around Portland, and I have no idea how to get anywhere. And I'm on the Max, because at that point I'm like, I'm just going to get on the Max, because I don't know. I'm just freaking, like, I have no idea where I'm at. I'm in this big old city. And that guy was freaking on the Max.
The one you just ran from?
Yes, he's on the Max. And okay. I'm like, Oh my God. So my dumbass, this is how stupid I am. Even though that had just happened, I was excited to see a familiar face because I was like scared. But I did have his money. So he's like, hey, like you took our money, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm so sorry for what happened, but I need that money back. I give him the money back. And he's like, we can go to my sister's house and I promise you'll be safe. Like, and then I'll help you find the Greyhound, or I'll help you get to the Greyhound station in the morning. I go with him. And I remember his family was Nigerian, like straight up. He didn't have an accent, but his sister did. So I don't know if she was born there. I don't know. They were like legit Nigerian. And I remember his sister was pretty safe. And I remember telling her what had happened, and she was really mad. And I remember her saying like, go in my room. And I heard her screaming at him. And then she was like, okay, you can sleep on my floor. He's going to sleep out there. We're locking the door. You're safe. And I slept in there. So I was safe, but it was just a weird situation. I'm like, I don't know why I went like back with him. And, yeah. So this is why I always say God was always looking out for me, because the amount of crazy, weird situations I put myself in, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know? So anyways.
By the grace of God.
Yeah, literally. And so I found, got me to the Greyhound station. They wouldn't let me buy a ticket. So I found some guy that I recognized from Eugene. And he's like, yeah, all you need is to get a $10 ticket. Oh, and I have no money because I gave the money back to the guy. And so he's like, you just need to get, and he's in line to get on the bus. So like the bus to Eugene is about to leave. And this is the only person, and this is somebody I actually recognize from Eugene. I barely know him, but I recognize him like in passing. And I'm like, please like help me get on this bus. Like, he's like, I have no money, but if you buy a $10 ticket to Salem, they don't check your ticket until you get to, where's that place? Roseburg. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I'm like, I need $10. So I start screaming to everyone in line, I need $10 to get home. Like, somebody please help me. And I get $10. Like, one person gave me $1, $5, whatever. And then he went and bought me a ticket because I couldn't get a ticket. I was underage and I had no ID. And so he gets me a ticket. I get on there. I get home at like whatever time. And then I was back in Eugene living on the streets. And yeah.
What was your mom doing during this time? Was she trying to get you back home, or did she just kind of give up and let you go?
Yeah, she tried a couple times for sure. And then even my dad, he came and like kidnapped me. I always say kidnap. He just came and got me. But in Eugene, it's not illegal to be a runaway. So the cops, there's no legal recourse you can take. You could call and say, hey, my kid is right here and she's a runaway and I can't get her to come home with me. And they're like, there's nothing you can really do. It wasn't until I started committing crimes.
Must just be a city law then. Because
Yeah.
I know where I'm from, in Southern Oregon, that's definitely a thing. Like if you report your kid will run away, they'll pick him up and bring him back.
Yeah.
Or bring him to the station, or
Maybe.
so you can come get him or something.
I don't know, because my mom literally, at one point, she tried to grab me. She found me, tried to grab me, and the cops came. I went running. The cops came, and they tried to get her in trouble for putting their hands on me. And they're like, she's running away. Like, I need to get my daughter. And there was nothing that they could do. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so you take the crazy bus trip. You're back in Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
I guess just like the lifestyle I was living. So I found some really good friends. It was like my street family. And we just lived on the streets. There was different things that we would do. And during this time, I mean, it's Oregon. It's still cold. There was a heater by the pool. There was like this place that had a pool. And on the outside, there was a heater. And it'd stay on until midnight. So we'd stay there. But the cops started kind of rolling up and they'd get us out of there. But we would stay there for a while. And then there was like sewer grates that were warm that we'd sleep on. We'd find abandoned houses. We would sleep in the park sometimes. But like I said, like it was really cold at this point. So our best friend was alcohol. Because when you're drunk, you could kind of sleep anywhere, you know?
Yeah. So Did you start doing drugs at this point, or is it just kind of weed and booze?
Weed and alcohol, maybe some party drugs here and there, pills, whatever. We'd go to parties. Like our whole objective every day was to get money. We try to get something to eat, get money to get alcohol, have somebody buy us alcohol, find somewhere to sleep that night, and do it all over the next day. So, I mean, I was definitely just partying. I wasn't like doing hard drugs yet.
Mm-hmm. When did that transpire?
The hard drugs?
Yeah.
So at this point, I think the first charge I ever got was I tried to steal an ICP CD from Barnes and Nobles. I got locked up. My mom got me. Oh, actually, this was pretty crazy. My mom picked me up from the thing, and I went psychotic in her car, cracked her windshield, caused her to get in a wreck. And then we're we're pulled over because my mom's like, "Oh my gosh, this is like, what is going on? My daughter's like demonic right now." And I'm telling her I'm going to kill myself, this and that. And I remember I didn't try to crack the windshield, but I was kicking the car, kicking, and I kicked the windshield, cracked it. She hits the car in front of her, just a little fender bender. And we pull over, and the lady gets out, and she's like, my mom's like, going to give her information. And the lady's like, "Can I pray for you guys?" And I was like, that's a great time for me to run out of this car. So I saw the bus coming, and I still had my bus pass from that moment. And I ran out of the car and ran away and got on the bus. And then from there, I was in and out of juvie. And I think that's really where it started to get bad. And I tried meth, I don't know, like maybe September or October of 2008. And I did it for like 2 months, or not 2 months, 2 weeks. Got cracked out. All of my friends, my street friends, were not happy because that was not their lifestyle. They were partiers, but they weren't like hard drug users. And, but that was like the first time I got a taste of it. And I was
and
like,
that's at 13?
13.
Still? Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I did it twice before I got locked up. And then, for good. I was in and out of juvie at this point. And I got locked up for good. Was involved in a very, very bad riot and tried to escape. The correctional facility. And that caused me to be there for over 2 years. So.
That's that's a lot of childhood. Like,
Yeah.
Just gone. Okay, so I guess we can fast forward to getting out of juvie.
Do you want to talk about juvie at all?
Yeah, I guess you could. I mean, you just covered the riot. What else kind of went on in there? Like how did that kind of shape your
Yeah.
life?
I think juvie had its own sets of trauma and weird stuff, but I think also I was one of the girls, and I would say this is rare, but I was one of the girls, and I know some of my girls, and I know that some of them are watching. I'm like, they did get out of it, and they're good and thriving now, but I think it's very rare in there to actually take the resources. But I remember thinking, and I remember always having a deep sense of purpose. From a young age. I actually found something from when I was 7 that said God has a plan for my life, which, or my grandma found it and gave it to me recently, like in the last year or two. And I was like, I don't know where that came from, but even through all of this stuff, I always had a deep sense of purpose. And I remember thinking that if I was stuck in there for 2 years, I was going to make something of it. And, so I busted my butt like crazy doing as much extracurricular activities as or not extracurricular, sorry, extra assignments and stuff I could do to gain any credits I could get, because I wanted to get out of there with a diploma, which didn't end up happening. But
okay, so we've talked about up until the riot, you were kind of just still in the same like hood rat mindset, right?
yeah, I didn't really have a I still, again, like in my heart, I had a sense of purpose. But at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to be there for a couple months,
Yeah,
get
you're
out, and do
still.
whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, you don't care. So after the riot, your mindset shifted.
Well, yeah, that's when shit got real for me because uh, the riot was very serious. A guard got 32 staples in his head, and it was a really serious situation. Like my co-defendants, they were all older than me. I was only 13, but everyone who's over 15 got charged as adults and set up state and got Measure 11 charges. So in Oregon, there's a Measure 11, which means that it's any of these specific crimes that you commit, it's mandatory time. So I think one of my co-defendants got 11 years. And if you think about that, this happened in 2008. So that was 17 years ago. So she just got out a couple years ago, if you think about that. You know what I mean? Maybe it was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever.
Still though.
But yeah, she like, think of how much life I've lived in the last 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just crazy to think about, that if I was just a little older, my whole life could have been different. I really could have. And I think I felt that. I was like, dang, my life. And after the riot, we got treated pretty poorly. And I'm not saying we didn't deserve it, but it was pretty crazy. I remember I got taken down by 4 grown men. I was acting crazy, but by the time they got in there, I got scared and I ran to the back wall. And I was like, I'm sorry. And they started throwing me around. And my theory is that when one would grab me, the other thought I was resisting or pulling away, and said they'd grab me another way, because I felt like I was being thrown around like a rag doll. It was such a crazy experience. And at this point, again, I'm 13. So like I'm embarrassed easily and like whatever. And I was wearing, they call it hard copy, so a jail jumpsuit. I wasn't allowed to have bra or underwear. Because when you're in that, like observation, you are kind of like on suicide watch. So you can't have bra, underwear. You can only have hard copies. You can only have, like even sometimes they put you in a smock, but I wasn't in a smock. I was just in hard copies. Like the type of blanket you have is like, you can't have one that you could hang yourself with or whatever. And so I have no bra or underwear on. I haven't showered in a week because they wouldn't allow us to come out of our cells to shower after the riot. And so I stink. Haven't been able to shave down there or nothing. No underwear on. And my pants start to fall down. Again, I'm being taken down by 4 grown men. So I tried to pull my pants up, and that's when they threw me down. My pants are off, and they put my they put my hand behind my back. Like it's hard. Like it was so hurt. I couldn't move it past this. Couldn't put it up. I couldn't pull it out for 2 weeks. And they never gave me x-rays. They never gave me anything to like see what happened. And immediately after that, so then they had a female come in and pull my pants up for me. But it was mortifying to me because I'm like, not only do I stink, I'm freaking haven't shaved. Have no underwear on, and I'm butt naked in front of 4 men. And they're taking me down like that. Like, it was gross. And so then they strapped me to a board, and I was like crying, and they bent my arm back out, and they strapped me down. So I'm laying flat on this board, kind of like a stretcher, and they had nowhere to go because of the riot. They had all of the observations and safe rooms were taken up. So they left me in the gym, but by myself on the floor, strapped to a board. And I remember for some reason that the gym had dead ladybugs everywhere all the time. And I don't really know why. But I remember looking down and seeing like this ladybug that was like half dead and it was like moving around. And I remember tears just coming out of my eyes and just like looking at this ladybug. And so that was a weird memory, but yeah.
Okay. So you got past that. You started studying for your GED or diploma, I guess.
Yeah. So I actually had a really awesome principal in there that I clicked with her really well. So after the riot, I realized that was a close call. I don't know how long I'm going to be in here because when you are in OIA's custody there and you don't have DOC charges, so Oregon Youth Authority versus Department of Corrections, there is no sentencing. You get committed. So I had a commitment date until my 25th birthday. So theoretically, they could keep me in Oak Creek until I was 25, which was 5 years ago. Think about that.
That's crazy.
I could have literally been in there my whole life.
But because you shaped up. And
Yeah,
then
they
your
ended up
behavior
letting me out after
changed.
2 years.
Yeah.
But I did blind time. So at this point, I'm like, I got to get my shit together. If I'm going to be in here, I could be in here for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. I have no idea. I need to get as much out of this as I can.
Yeah.
And so that's when I cozied up to my principal, which we actually got along really well. And she started giving me assignments that I was interested in. And I was able to study them and make presentations on them and get school credit for it. And so she really allowed me to learn about things I really wanted to learn about. On top of obviously my, math and whatnot.
And is this around the same time the Olympic lifting coach came in and started working
Oh
with
no,
you?
we kind of missed that. So that was before I went to Oak Creek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was in John Surbu, which is the juvie. So the detention center is more like jail, whereas Oak Creek correctional facility is more prison, long-term stay. So before I got there, I actually went into a program called the Phoenix program, which is attached to the jail. So they have different pods. So they had the Phoenix program, they had the regular like jail pod, they had a probation school pod, and then they had an empty pod. And I started doing Olympic lifting with Tom Hertz, who was he was an Olympic alternate in the 70s, which I didn't even know. Like, this guy was not only a wealth of knowledge, he was a wealth of experience. Had no idea, and I totally took it for granted, but I fell in love with Olympic lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which was a seed that
That really, that I owe to my life, like CrossFit. And that's like, it's like the butterfly effect. Or, I mean, you just say freaking God, put that in my life, not to change me right in that moment, but to plant a seed in me.
Because then fast forward, when you're you wanted to work out, you were looking for somewhere actually to Olympic lift, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you found CrossFit?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember just thinking that was the type of working out I liked. Like, yeah, I like to go and just like go to the gym and stuff, but I never felt confident in just going to the gym and hitting weights or whatever. I always felt like I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I was all over the place, confused. Like, I would do like 3 reps when I said I was going to do 5, but then it just felt like, okay, that was enough reps. I don't know, move on. And it always felt like I wasn't really getting workout in.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember doing Olympic lifting, getting buff and in shape. And I remember getting out and all my friends were like, what have you been doing? You look freaking... But I didn't even care about the muscles or what I looked like. I was just I loved getting strong. And I remember I always had like boy partners who'd go in and lift with me because none of the girls wanted to lift with me. And it was like I was always lifting more than them. And that was so fun to me. I really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually, like 7 years later, I find CrossFit. So that was really cool.
That is cool. So, okay, we'll rewind again. Now
Mm-hmm.
you've done your 2 years.
A month and 20 days. 2 years, a month, 20 days.
Month and 20 days. Okay. So then we're getting out.
Yep.
Your parents come pick you up? Both
Yeah.
together?
My parents, my parents, again, never together. At this point, my dad gets divorced. My mom gets divorced. My mom had some other relationships, but it didn't work out. They come and visit me at some point, and they're like, we're together. And I'm like, what? I've never known my parents ever to be together. This is the weirdest thing of my life. And it's very apparent quickly that they're using to me.
When they come to visit, you could just tell.
Yep, I could tell. It just was like...
So, like, collectively, just between the two of them, or was it one?
Yeah,
of them
they're
that
just
jumped
acting
out?
weird. I mean, we had fun, but it was like I could just tell they were on drugs, and that's another.
Was your dad back to straight up crazy, right? Or was that kind of like a cycles, like he was okay and then not, and then, or was it all when
No,
he was high?
I
It
think
was
once
all
he
bad.
started getting high again, there was moments of lucidness, but I think once he was getting high, it was just a matter of time
Okay.
until that would happen. Um, so they come and pick me up in a limo, a stretch Hummer. Yeah, with my brother, my cousin, my sisters. I don't remember exactly who was
Andrew
all in
probably,
there.
because Josh
Andrew was
was
there. Josh was
probably
still,
in jail.
locked up or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
Josh has been locked up my whole life, pretty much. He's out like here and there, and then he gets locked up again. But um, Andrew, my cousin TJ. I don't remember who else was there, but I remember feeling I had this bright future. But I get in the limo and my dad's like crying, like he has like his hands in his head, and he's like, and I think it's because he thought he had some delusion going on, thinking that something bad was gonna happen or something, and so again, it's just like that weird like
This is as they're picking you up from juvie.
yeah, and so again, it's just like that weird like okay, here I go, like gotta take care of the adults in my life, which I will say juvie was like a little bit of a break from that because it felt like I was good. I'm on my own. Like I don't really have to have anybody,
Yeah. I think
Um,
that's where people get to institutionalized, where like a lot of people that end up just returning to prison continually, it's because like something in them was like misses that structure and that.
there's been
Like,
times where I'm like, I would never want to go back to jail, but I would go there for a week. Just not have to worry
like
about
a
anything.
vacation.
Like, what the heck? Um, yeah, I definitely learned a lot in there. And I did a lot of behavioral therapy too, so I forgot, we kind of glossed over that. But,
Mm.
um, so I learned a lot in there. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so they pick you up. They're using again.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, you are living with them full time.
I'm
You're
living with my grandma. So I had a
okay.
bedroom set out for me at my grandma's house. My parents took it over.
Okay.
My mom stole all my brand new clothes that my grandma had bought me and cut the bottom of all of my jeans off, and they were just acting like children.
Okay.
Yeah,
And you're
I'm
15-ish at this
15.
point. Okay.
Yep,
So,
about to be 16. I got out
so they
right
stole
before
your
my
bedroom.
16th
So
birthday.
are you're with your grandma like
So then
out
I
on the
just went and
couch?
stayed with my aunt.
Okay.
And at this point, my aunt, who I'd never known to be a drug addict, well, she was on morphine most of my life because that was prescribed from the doctors. So she was always a drug addict, but I didn't know that. But she was getting high, doing heroin, snorting coke, and I was like, "What the hell?" She got a divorce and just started going crazy. So that was a really interesting transition for me as well. But I went and was hanging out with her and my cousin Ashley, and which they were all partying, and I remember them getting me some Adderall, and that's
So
like
you were clean at this point out of
Mhm.
juvie. You're trying to do good.
I wanted to do good. Yeah, I had a job with my grandma.
And
I got my GED so that I could just start working because I was going to try to go to school, and I only had 2 credits left to get, and they didn't do partial credit, so I was going to have to wait until the next semester.
so your plan was to work for your grandma till you could get your diploma and then get into college.
Yeah,
Or-
I think that's what I wanted. I had a lot of different plans, and I really wanted to join the military. I tried to go join the military, but they asked me about. My original plan was the Air Force, but then I got suckered into the hard boot camp with the Marines,
Mhm.
and so I go to the Marines recruiting office, and I'm doing all their stuff, and they asked me if I had any charges, any person-on-person charges. I said no because I was scared.
Oh.
But I didn't. I thought maybe like they couldn't see my record.
So they looked it up.
Yeah, they could see my record, and then I lied to them, so it was even worse. And so then I just ghosted them, and I was like, I'm good. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
So that kind of that stopped me from joining the military, which that was my real dream right there. I had a feeling though that I needed to do something and get out of there, or I was gonna get stuck, and I did. I got stuck for a while.
That's when your
Started
cousin
using.
got you Adderall, and that led to getting back on meth at that
Yeah,
point.
so I was just doing Adderall and trying to stay clean because I knew that that wouldn't show up in my UA, or maybe it would. I don't even know, dude. I think actually Adderall does show up as amphetamines,
Amphetamine, yeah.
amphetamines. But yeah, I don't know. So I was just being reckless as heck. But I was on an interstate compact, so that made it a little easier for me because they weren't my actual original like I wasn't their original case. So they didn't know how I operated really other than what was in the thing, and they'd seen how good of a kid I was throughout juvie after I had like grown up and changed.
Yeah.
And so I think I went in and got like UA like twice maybe. So that mean
And they just kind of took you at your word. They saw that
yeah.
you were doing better and
Yep.
gave you the freedom.
And I remember I wanted to do good, but everyone around me was not. My parents were not doing good. And I remember making a pact with my mom saying, okay, like, I want to use, but I won't if you won't. And she ended up wanting to get high so bad. She was like, well, I want to get high. And she was honest with me. I was like, fine, then I'll get high with you. And that's the first time I relapsed on meth. I went and smoked meth with her and my aunt, different aunt than I was talking about before, and some guy. And my mom always feels really guilty and weird about that happened. But, I mean, it just is what it is at that point. And so we got high, and I just remember just feeling euphoric, and I was like, yes, I love this. And that was like the beginning of the end for me on that front. And I remember I still was trying to control it. Like I had a 3-day on and 3-day off program. That was
Like
what I
the
called
rules.
it.
It's like an alcoholic.
I
not
was so
drinking.
like organized about everything and
Yeah.
like weird back then. Like everything in my life was like very. I think I was a lot more like C personality back then because I was very like. I remember I would go and check out like 50 books from the library, and I had like this little log of all the books I kept and what the date was and this and that. Like I was very organized. But I remember, so I would get high for 3 days. I'd sleep it off for 3 days, but mind you, I still worked 5 days a week. So I would, sleep. I'd stay up for 3 days, and then that one day I would sleep in a bit, go into late work later, and I'd take my grandma's herbs that would help me with like my energy levels, Mintran, and well, it helps you. I would take Mintran and no, not Mintran. Yeah, Drenamin and
Mood elevator.
Nutricom, because that has B vitamins in it. So I'd take those two, and they would just make me feel like I was alive and I was good. So I would stay clean for 3 days, and then that last day, depending on how I was feeling, I would either use or not use. And I had a friend who'd hook me up. I'd give him $10, and he'd give me like 2 weeks worth of meth, which I really wasn't using a lot. I would I would smoke a tiny little bit, and then it would be good for the day, So I was very like meticulous about it, and I was like, I'm good. And at this point, I'm freaking 16 years old. Like, this is so ridiculous. And then my Aunt Jamie was on probation or parole, and they needed a safe place for her to live. And so she ended up coming and starting to live with me and my grandma. And from this point, my Aunt Jamie was like really like, she knew all the biggest dealers in town. She had been in that life for so long. So she started bringing like big time drug dealers to my grandma's house. And that's when that 3-day on, 3-day off program went right out the window. It came 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so she actually, I guess, do you want to get into that part?
Yeah. So you and her like basically rooming together.
Mm-hmm.
She's bringing over drug dealers.
Yep.
You really into that life at this point? Like,
Yeah, it's getting bad.
Where did that start leading you?
So she introduced me to a 42-year-old man named Matt, and my Aunt Jamie, she wasn't really like a lot older than. I think she just turned 40, so she's only 10 years older than me.
Okay. That makes sense.
Or no, she's 40 something. Yeah, she's not that much older than me, I don't think. I think she's only like 10 or 12 years older than me or something. I don't know. So she's really not that much older than me. And she has had a really hard life. Like anything that I've been through, she's been through it 10 times worse. And deep in her addiction, she was really, really, really messed up. So a lot of this stuff that I talk about, I want to preface that with anyone I talk about in my life, because most of all these people are healing and better now, you know? So my Aunt Jamie, she introduced me to Matt and basically was like, you guys should hook up. And so I hooked up with Matt, and I think I just had daddy issues, and I wanted, like, he seemed safe, and like he was going to, I don't know what was going on in my head. Again, I'm 16, he's 42. And so I ended up being with him. Yeah. And we were together for almost 2 years. I got pregnant, had a miscarriage, got pregnant again with my son. And, yeah.
Yeah. What was the living conditions like with this?
Yeah, so I moved out of my grandma's and moved in with him. He lived, so his mom had like a mid-century modern house with big windows in front of it. Right in front of the house, he had a Winnebago motorhome, like a shorter one. And that's what he lived in. And I lived in that with him. The kicker was that he was not allowed to have women over at the house. So so the house sat up high, so she could see the roof of it. She couldn't see on the other side. He would park next to the Winnebago. There was a window on this side of it that was kind of high. Like it was a pretty high window. He would have me either put the back seat down and sit in the trunk, or so that she couldn't see because she was also very nosy. And I say that she was probably nosy because she knew he was always up to no good. And so he would have me sit in the trunk. I would get out when sometimes I'd have to sit there because sometimes she'd be outside gardening or something, and I'd have to just wait and be quiet. And then when time would come, he would open the door, and I had to get out and stay like low and creep out. And then he would lift me up and put me into the window, and then he would go around and we would spend the night together. And then in the morning, he would same thing, wait until it was time, and he would sneak me out of the window, and I had to get in the trunk until we got down the driveway, and then I could get out of the car. And so I lived there for 6 months, and she never saw me or heard me one time, if that tells you anything. Yeah. I remember one time being so sick that I mean sick, like coughing like really, really bad. And I remember laying there, and I wasn't allowed to cough because she could hear me and I could hear them outside. And I remember laying there and I wasn't allowed to move. And I remember just going, because I had to cough so bad. And like, you know, that feeling. And I had the blanket over my face, and I was like trying to get the itch out of my throat. And I mean, that's how crazy it was. I had to pee in cups because I wasn't allowed to use the toilet in there. So I had to I remember I actually got a freaking bladder infection, like severe bladder infection when I was in there because I would hold my pee for so long. And yeah, I mean, it was gross and crazy, but I just accepted it as normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, at some point during this crazy relationship, your parents got clean, right?
Mm-hmm. So my parents actually got clean. My mom got clean and my dad got clean separately because they broke up. So after I got out and stuff, they broke up because they were going hard. They went to Florida. My dad ended up going back to jail. He got clean in there. My mom got clean on her own. She got a different boyfriend, but she came to visit me while I was pregnant. And at this point, we got our own motorhome, moved it out to somebody's plot that had a motorhome hookups, and they had a room in their barn that again had no bathroom or anything. So again, we have no bathroom, but it was like an actual room, and so we were able to put a bed in there and like set it up, and then we had the motorhome for the bathroom and stuff, I guess, but we weren't allowed to use it yet because it needed to get fixed. But my mom came and stayed with me, and I think she just didn't want to stay in my little room thing, and so she went and stayed with my dad, and they got back together. And so then they started going, and my dad was doing really good at the time. He was on drug court, and his license was taken away. I remember he didn't even drive. He rode his bike everywhere until he got his license back. Like, he really did everything he had to do to like change his life. And so they were doing really well during this kind of relationship. Yeah.
And if I'm got it correctly, I think they've stayed clean since that time. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been clean off of meth since that time. They did end up relapsing and drinking later on, but
right.
Yeah, they've
but
been
he
off
never
meth.
went back to the craziness
No,
after that.
never went back to that. So
Okay, so parents are back together. You're in this real weird relationship.
yeah.
What happens next?
So, Matt was very emotionally abusive and sometimes physically abusive. He definitely would push me around. He'd hit me sometimes. Nothing like extremely crazy, but would definitely. And he was very. He groomed me so hard. Like, it was just crazy. It was crazy to think about. So I got pregnant, and I had my baby when I was 17, and we were still together. And when I turned 18, I just remember having this mental shift where, sorry, oh, you're good. I remember having this mental shift where I just was like, what is going on? And he had gotten locked up, and I started shooting up drugs and not doing. Oh no, wait, that was the year before. I'm getting confused. He got locked up again. Okay, so I already had my baby. I have my son. I start going to school. He gets locked up, and I just start having this like feeling like why am I with this guy? He's like 44 at this point, and it's just gross.
And you're 18
I'm
now?
18. And I remember all of our friends, because we had a lot of like friends that were in their 40s and stuff, and they were all his friends. They grew up together and stuff. They all thought I was 19 when we met. So at this point, they think I'm like 21. And yeah. And so I remember a lot of them were like, let's go drink. Like, let's take you out. I'm like, I don't have an ID, but like, I can't even tell them like, I'm finally an adult,
Yeah.
And so, cause we had to lie about my age, but, I remember just thinking like, what am I doing with this guy? Like, I was like, really just got this weird thing in my head. And I remember sitting down with my friend, and she's like, well, don't you realize like all his girlfriends have gotten younger and younger? Like, his wife was only like 5 years younger than him. And then his next girlfriend was like 10 years younger. And his next girlfriend was, 20 years younger. And then I was like 25 years younger. And he's like, he's looking for a blank canvas. And that was you. Because he would always use verbiage like, oh, you're my student, I'm the teacher. And, oh, let me teach you a lesson. And like, he wanted to groom me into his perfect.
It's gross.
Really gross when you think about it. Yeah. And that's when I really started to realize what was going on. And that's when I left him and started talking to Michael.
You had known Michael before this, though, right?
Yeah.
Just from around. So
Michael was my aunt's. I don't even know, dude. He had slept with everybody in my family. Shout out to Michael, my ex-husband. And I had slept with him when I was 16, but he didn't know how old I was. I didn't lie to him, but I just thought he knew. But my aunt kind of made it seem like, she just got out of jail, this and that. So he thought I was 18 or over 18. And I was very mature back then. Like, if you talked to me, you'd think I was older. I remember, like, all my 40-year-old friends and stuff, they'd always be, like, so shocked. They're like, you are so mature for a 19-year-old. And I'd be in my head like, I'm only 16. But, like, they thought I was older. And they still were surprised at how mature I was. So, like, I didn't, like looking back on it, I was like, oh, okay. Like he didn't even know how old I was. But I slept with him, and then he found out how old I was, and he was like, never again. Find me when you're 18. He wasn't like crazy older. He was early 20s, but still too old to be sleeping with a 16-year-old. So he was like really kind of grossed out by that. And so when I turned 18, I was like, well, I'm going to hit Michael up. And so I hit Michael up, and we just got close really fast, and kind of, that was like a super fast, crazy whirlwind of a relationship, and I got pregnant right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With the Daisha, and
Yep.
then Delilah. What? And then so you had two more. You had our two girls with him, and then at some point during this time, you guys, your parents, and then you followed to Grants Pass.
Yep.
Right? This is the
So
one.
Michael and I had Daisha. There was some crazy stuff with Michael. You know, he actually was fighting a case that had happened before we had gotten together, but it was pretty serious, and he was looking at some serious like prison time, and he couldn't stay clean, and
It was drug charges.
gun charges and
Okay.
stuff like that, and so his house had gotten raided, and um, so anyways, he was looking at some serious time, and at this point I'm pregnant, and so I'm thinking I'm gonna have to raise this baby alone, and I have the other baby, Raiden was only 7 months old when I got pregnant, so I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So I get clean and sober when I find out I'm pregnant, and Michael was just not doing good. Like he was in and out. Like I remember he punched me in the face one time because he didn't have heroin. Just stupid stuff. And he ends up like getting clean. I help him get clean. He goes to rehab and he's doing really good. We have Daisha, and then we have to go to that trial and fight this case. And by that time, we had gathered letters from all of the recovery community and just fought really hard and prayed and just prayed and prayed and prayed that he was not going to get any prison time. And the DA was amazing. Like we sat down and he's like, I can obviously see you've changed your life. I want to help you. I have to have some of these charges stick, but like these are just going to get you probation time. And here we go. And so we did that. And then we're deep in recovery. Everybody's doing great, and we get married. My parents get married, and this is 2019. I find out I'm pregnant later on, or not sorry, 2014. 2014. Not 2019. That's confusing. 2014. I find out I'm pregnant later that year. Actually, right when I started researching CrossFit and I was going to start CrossFit, I find out I'm pregnant. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to do anything, which is a lie. You can work out when you're pregnant. So if you are scared to work out and you just found out you're pregnant, still hit me up, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so I end up getting pregnant. I have to quit my job because the job I had was, I couldn't do pregnant. So, Michael gets laid off at the same time. So we have to go we're making anywhere from 1,500 to 3,500 a week. We have no money. And I had only put away enough to live for like 2 months. And so we have to move in with my parents, and we had to move in with my parents, and we had my stepdaughter at the time too. So we have to move our 3 kids, and now I'm pregnant.
And they're in Grants Pass now.
No, this is still Washington.
Okay.
Washington. And
okay. Gotcha.
so we move in with my parents. I get a job at a call center. Michael gets a job at a construction company, and a couple months after that, my parents decide that they want to move to Grants Pass to help my brother get clean and sober because he was really bad on heroin. And we really had no other plans at that point because we didn't even have a place to live. And so we decided to go with them. And that's when we moved to Grants Pass. That was 2015.
Okay. All right. So then you moved to Grants Pass. Your dad rents out that shop
Yeah.
to
The shop house.
Yes, to start a car dealership, right?
Yep.
Used car dealership.
Yeah, so my dad finds he wants to start a car dealership, and he's gonna start in Grants Pass, Oregon. It's 4 hours from where all of our family's at. We know one person in this town, and well, my dad knows a couple people because we lived in Wolf Creek when I was a kid, so close to Grants Pass. And
At this point, he had already had a dealership in Vancouver, though, so he kind of knew the business.
yeah, my dad's known cars my whole life, so I've worked, for him. I've sold cars for him, so Michael's sold cars for him. Like, we all know what we're doing. We can all work there and whatever. The kicker was that my dad didn't have enough money to rent a house and the car lot, so he rented a car lot that had a big, huge shop space, and they moved it. Like, made a makeshift kitchen, made a makeshift like house out of it. So there was the office, and then the house was on the back. And Michael and I had a RV that we lived in, a fifth wheel, and yeah, so we just like lived like that. And there was no water inside the building, so we had showers outside. By the time we moved there, I had Lila, and then we moved 2 weeks later. And it was already fall time in Oregon. It gets cold. And so we'd have to walk outside to go take a shower, and in the bathroom in the middle of the night and stuff. It was like crazy. And so we had to do that. And then we had to wash dishes outside and do laundry outside too, because the only water was outside. So, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it was really crazy.
And there was, what, like 12 of you living there? Or
There was a lot of us. It was like my siblings, so my 3 little siblings, my brother, my mom, my dad, my grandpa was living there, but I don't know where my grandma was. I think she still maybe was in Washington. My grandpa would live there part-time, I think. He would come and stay with us sometimes, and then he'd go back. I don't really know. And then me, Michael, and our 3 kids. So, yeah, I think there's...
That's a lot of people.
Oh, 4 kids. We had 4 kids at that point, so 13 people or something. Yeah, in this shop house. Like, I will, like, I need to show you guys pictures sometime, because that was a weird time. And so my brother did end up getting sober off of heroin for a few months, which was really nice.
While you were in the shop house?
Mm-hmm. And it felt like I had my brother back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then, moving forward, the car dealerships or business started making money. He was able to get you guys into it. That's when you moved out to Wolf Creek, right?
He moved out to Wolf Creek.
He did. You guys.
Oh, no, we did too. Sorry. I'm dumb.
You guys still had a fifth wheel out in Wolf Creek, right? Or
No, we had the cabin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had the cabin. You guys had a nicer house out there, like a commune, basically. There was trailers
The cabin
out there too,
was
right?
very ghetto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the house was nicer. It was big. It was better than the shop house. Like,
Yeah.
coming from the shop house, everything was nice.
Right.
The cabin was scary, and it later burnt down because of electrical issues. So, luckily, we weren't living in there anymore. But
Yeah. Dang.
yeah, but the day that my parents moved in there was the day that my brother died. So
Moved into Wolf Creek?
yeah, I think my parents moved in there, and then they were coming January 1st to come pick up. They moved in like the day before or something. They had their like bed and stuff, maybe like a couple of days before. And so there was still some stuff left at the shop house. We were supposed to all move it together that day.
So everybody else was still at the shop house?
Me and Michael and the kids and Andrew. Everybody
okay.
else was...
Okay. So this was New Year's at this point?
New Year's
You
Day.
guys celebrate New Year's Day?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be kind of hard, but... So, New Year's... It was actually the first New Year's I ever just went to bed early and didn't celebrate. My brother had just got back from Washington, and I could tell he was high on meth, and I knew it, but I didn't want to harp on him. because he had been clean. And I had just had a conversation with him a month before. And I was like, you know that if you go back to heroin, like, you could die. Like, this is not a joke. Like, Michael's cousin had just died of a heroin overdose. And I was like, that's when, like, that fentanyl was starting to, we didn't really know about the fentanyl, but we knew, like, that, like, we knew about it, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. But we knew, like, when you stop doing it for a while, that's, you would try to do the same dose and overdose or whatever. And, so he normally slept in the living room, but we were sleeping in the living room because we had moved out of the thing. There was no heat in the trailer at that point, and it was really cold. And so I told Andrew he could go sleep outside in the trailer, and he asked me to wake him up at 9:30, and I thought that was weird because he never woke up early. But I think he wanted me to check on him because I think he was planning it. Like, not, like, I think he knew he was going to use, and he just wanted to make sure that we were there. I forgot in the morning, though, and my parents got there and said, hey, like, are you guys ready to move? And I was getting ready for work. And Michael was like, yeah. And they're like, is Andrew up? Like, go wake him up. And Michael went outside, and he came running back. He came running back, and he's like, something's wrong with Andrew. And I just remember my dad saying, is he dead? And my mom ran out there, and they ran back, and so I was putting Delilah in the car seat because we were in the shop house had concrete floors, so I didn't want her to, like, fall or something. And I remember going out there, and he was, like, sitting up against he was sitting up, like, on the floor, and there was a needle next to him, and his guitar was on the bed, and I didn't know, I thought he wasn't dead yet, but he was dead. And I was just screaming because I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And my mom was touching his face, and she was crying, and my dad was arguing with the ambulance, and he couldn't get anything out. He's like, just give me a fucking ambulance. And they were asking all these questions, and I remember at one point I took the phone, and they were just asking so many questions, and none of us were even coherent at that point. So they picked him up, and they put him in the car. And I remember he made the sound like, it was like, and I thought that meant he was still alive, but I later found out that, like, it's just like air leaving. And when he got to the hospital, his body temperature was already, like, in the 80s. And so they were like, he's gone or whatever. But I was praying, and the cops were, like, kind of messing with me. They were, like, asking me his information, but I couldn't think straight. I was so scared. And I remember my dad saying, like, I don't think he's going to make it. And then the cops came back, and they're like, he passed away. And it was just, like, really, it was really fucked up. I don't know what else to say about that. But yeah, that was, like, really traumatic. So, yeah, anyways.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So, after this situation, how did your family, like, do you feel like it brought you guys together, or?
No, I think the opposite. It was really, really hard time because I remember we'd all walk in a room, and I literally remember, like, at one point walking in a room, and I looked at my dad, and he looked at me, and my eyes started to well up, and his eyes started to well up, and it was just like, and just walk away because my dad and Michael didn't want to talk about it. They would rather just avoid it. And my mom and I wanted to talk about it, but when they were around, they didn't want to talk about it. So, like, we kind of felt a little bit abandoned.
in those moments. And I know, and it's like hard to think about right now because it's something I didn't even realize, like talking about when my sister died and how I felt emotionally abandoned, like didn't really know what to do. I feel like that happened to my siblings too, because my siblings were young, and I don't think I was there for them either, you know, because I was just like doing what I was taught by the actions of the adults around me, and I wish I could have been a little better with my siblings, like talking through their emotions and stuff, because I know that they probably felt really similar to what I felt like. Yeah.
You know how to handle it.
And so yeah, we all kind of grew apart. It was really bad on our family. Me and my ex-husband,
You say this would probably be like the beginning of the end for you and Michael?
100%. Yeah, I remember he started using really bad after that. I think that he was really affected. He was really good friends with my brother, and so that was really hard for him. But he didn't want to talk about his emotions, and he started doing meth again and relapsing, and he was like gaslighting me. And I thought he was trying to get me to think he was cheating on me because it was easier for him to think to think I was being cheated on than him actually doing drugs, you know? And so, but I would find, like, I remember seeing like some shards of meth on the counter, and I'm not stupid. I knew what it was. And I remember, like, this is so freaking stupid, but I remember, like, I was so like, I have to like taste this to make sure, and I like just like put the tiniest bit on my tongue to see what it tastes like, and I'm like, that's freaking meth. And I washed my hands, and I remember telling him, I'm like, why the hell was there meth on the counter? I freaking tasted it. I know it's meth. And he's like, why would you taste it? Like, you're freaking breastfeeding. And I was like, I just put it on my tongue like a tiny bit, which is stupid, but he like gaslit me. He's like, I don't know what that was. It was probably some freaking chemical, and you just like put it in your mouth. Like, you're so stupid. And like, yeah, and so he like totally tricked me and like gaslit me, and I freaking believed him, whatever, dude. And so it went like that for a while, and I remember telling my grandma, I'm like, I think I'm done with Michael. I can't be with him anymore. Like, he's lying to me. He's doing all this stuff. And my grandma said, well, you're going to Disneyland. Pray to God. Ask him for clarity. And at the end of this trip, you'll know if it's
So Andrew died in January.
Mhm.
When is this? When are we at right
May.
now? Okay.
Yeah. And between this, I should add, like, my uncle, my say-so uncle, so my dad's best friend, died 6 days later. So then we lost, I think, 6 friends that year. Really freaking hard situation. Like, 2016 was a really hard year for our family. So we go to Disneyland, and the hard part about Disneyland was that Andrew was always meant to go with us too. So it was.
I think you guys had that trip planned already.
Mm-hmm. So it was really sad to go and not have him there, you know.
Yeah.
And so we go to Disneyland, and Michael's freaking telling me he's gonna spit on me in the middle of Main Street, get in a fight with my mom, smoking meth in the bathroom at Disneyland. And I knew we were done after that. I couldn't do anymore, and I moved to Washington and got an apartment.
Like, as soon as you guys got back?
It was like probably maybe a week or two. I made that decision, and I knew in my heart it was done. But I mean, there was still some falling out. Like, he came back and tried to be with me, and then it wasn't working. He blocked me, this and that. Like, there was a couple months of transition. Yeah.
Especially marriage and kids.
Yeah. And then eventually I went on a date with somebody, and I feel like I did that to just cut it off. And I remember I kissed the guy, and I felt like really bad, and I just texted Michael. But it was like my way of like, see, now we're done. We're done. And
Okay. So now you got your own apartment. You have all the kids. Michael's still in Grants Pass, right?
Yep.
Okay. You're back in Vancouver. And then this is about the time you decided to start drinking again?
Yes. So I hung out with a lot of friends. I was 21. They were all normies and had no problem with addiction. And they'd go to the clubs on the weekends. And I just wanted to do that. I wanted to be normal, you know? And so I started drinking again. And it took me exactly 4 months to go from drinking every other weekend to drinking every weekend to drinking in the middle of the week to doing meth. So
4 months?
yeah, 4 months.
Okay. Okay, so start drinking, fast forward 4 months, we're high again.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
So I end up getting with this guy, Ruben. Michael and I are completely broke up.
At this point, Michael's got...
Now Michael's trying to get
He's-
clean. He
he's
takes
with,
the kids.
He's with his current girlfriend now.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet.
So he's getting clean. He takes the kids for a little while, and I go crazy. And I think it was like my way of grieving and my way of like. Also, I started having kids when I was 17, and then got my life together when I was 18. So like I had never had a moment where I could just try to be an adult without children, and I think that in that 4 months, and then it went 4 months with my without my kids, and during that 4 months, which I hate that I left them, like this is another thing that just makes me so sad. Like I left them for 4 months with Michael, and my kids had never really been away from me like that ever. My daughter Daisha had never slept away from me, so she went from sleeping with me every single night to going 4 months without me, and that was freaking. This is really sad, but during that 4 months, I got with this guy Ruben, who was the most abusive, emotionally, physically person that I'd ever been with, and that's saying a lot because I'd had some really seriously bad relationships. But man, he took me. I did things that I never thought I'd do. Committed crimes I never thought I'd commit. I got an eviction. I destroyed my credit. All in 4 months. He literally took everything that I said I would never do, because my mantra was, oh, I don't hurt other people, I hurt myself. And Jesus, like, will square up at the end. Like, we're fine. Like, Jesus knows my heart. And
That's a dangerous thing. Too.
it is.
Yeah.
But I was never like, I didn't steal. I didn't, I was never writing bad checks. I was never doing anything like
Right.
janky like that.
He
He introduced me to a different life.
Pressured you into, like, made you feel dumb for not doing this stuff.
Yeah, he'd always be like, my ex-girlfriend was like, she'd do all this shit for me, blah, blah, blah. She would just go in and, like, open a bank account in someone else's name and this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not doing that. But I guess I'll just, like, put this bad check in my own account then, and it's like, yeah, I mean, he, like, really, and, like, he would just do stupid stuff, man, like, just, I don't even get into all of it, but it was to the point, like, he would have me, what was that noise?
What?
I heard a beeping noise. Was that my phone?
I don't know.
Can you make sure it's still recording? Sorry, guys. That was weird. But yeah, he would just pressure me into doing things I really didn't want to do, and I ended up getting a bank account shut off. It destroyed my credit, and I was really, like, responsible, and I took care of I had good credit, and, I had good rental history, and I had, like, everything that I had done was, like, I was, like, building a life for myself. I was only 21, and I already had, like, a good head on my shoulders. I had good stuff going, and it freaking, took me back. Like, I had to really work my way out of that hole that I dug after that.
So, how long were you and Ruben together for?
4 months.
4
yeah,
months.
it was only
So
4 months. The most crazy relationship.
So now we're at 8 months from when you started drinking. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So what's really funny is, and they say, once you've been in recovery and you'll never have a fun drinker using again, because you're always gonna, like, try to clean your side of the street, or you're gonna start having remorse for things you never cared about before, and that's the truest thing, because from the day that I started using, they'd make fun of me, like Ruben and I say his friends. I wasn't really allowed to hang out with his friends.
he was very controlling as well. But Ruben would like make fun of me. He'd be like, "You're such a freaking buzzkill, bro," because I would put on Christian music and cry. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I doing this? But when the time came to quit, I actually didn't want to quit, but he wanted to get off heroin. So he had been doing heroin, and he just decided one day he was gonna kick it, and so I had to just quit. And so we took off and drove to Florida to get clean. We were not sober; we were still drinking, and definitely like he beat me up 3 times, I think, during that trip. But when we got back, I was clean. And then I decided to quit drinking for good in January of 2017. So that was like the last time I drank.
Okay. That was while you were in Florida?
Mm-hmm.
That was the last time?
Yep.
Okay. So you stopped drinking. He's off of heroin. Is he on meth still?
On and off.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like...
But he doesn't care about drinking. He still drinks.
He would sometimes not drink, and then he would drink,
Okay.
and he couldn't...
Okay, so you're
Get his shit
completely
together.
clean and sober again.
Yep.
In Florida. And you
No,
guys
not in Florida.
Oh.
In Florida, I was still drinking.
Okay.
We got back.
Once you got back,
I was still drinking and smoking weed.
Okay.
But then I realized substances are not going to be okay with him. So I was like, I got to quit.
You gotta quit because you need him to quit.
Yeah, because, I mean, we smoked weed one night, and it got really weird, and he got super paranoid. I remember I was stoned, and I told him, he said, "What are you doing back there?" or something. And I was like, "I'm just riding the wave, man," like in an Australian accent. And he started treating me really weird and acting crazy, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And he finally told me later that I said, "I'm riding the wave," in an Australian accent. He said that told him I'm riding his wave. So I was trying to ruin his high. And so he we got in a huge fight. He beat me up, yada, yada, yada. I mean, and he would beat me up very badly. Yeah.
So, how did that start to come to a head? When did you... Obviously, you knew that this was not a sustainable relationship. When did you decide it was time to end it?
Well, to be really honest, and this is not my proudest moment. So at this point, Michael and Allison are together, which they're still together, and I love both of them. We have a great relationship now. But back then, Allison just felt like a threat to me, and I felt like she had everything I wanted, because I wanted Michael to be this great dad and blah blah blah, and he was doing all these things that I had always asked him to do. You know, I'm like, what the heck? So then I have this girl who's like trying to raise my kids, and Michael liked to like play us against each other. So of course he's telling her things, and I'm like, dude, yeah, I've been an asshole the last sorry about my language. I've been an asshole for the last 4 months, but before that I was a great mom. I had never, like, I took care of the kids. I got them ready. I did everything. So like she's coming in thinking like, oh, like this girl just left her kids and she's never been a mom, and Michael's done it all, and a poor guy, you know, like whatever. So on both sides, I'm feeling really like my pride and my ego is like going crazy, and then just the thought like that I destroyed my family, and now like I want my family back. So I was very honest with Ruben. I was like, I think I want to get back with Michael. Like I had a choice. I was trying to like basically break them up. Like I always compare it to my best friend's wedding when Julia Roberts is trying to break up Cameron Diaz and what's his name, and that's really, I was doing that. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly, and I'm really glad that Alice and I have grown since then. But yeah, so that's when I really started realizing I didn't want to be with Ruben anymore, and Ruben wasn't making it any better because he would stay clean for a week, and then he would use and freaking... it was ugly, and he came home like punching holes in the walls, whatever. And the final time he beat me up really badly in front of his sister, and and my daughter got hurt. So his sister slammed the door on my daughter. She was trying to just get the kids out of the way, but it was so crazy and hectic that my daughter's toe got stuck in the door and ripped her toenail off. And I saw her screaming and crying, and I lost my shit. That was the first time I like really fought back, and I started punching him, and I was like, and I had peed my pants. He beat me up so bad, my pants were wet, like soaked. I peed my pants, and I called Michael, and I think at that time Allison was just like really protective because of their relationship, because like obviously I'd gone crazy, so she thought I was just like trying to get him to come over to my house, which was not the case at that moment. I'm not saying that was above anything I would do, but I was like, no, like this, like our daughter just got hurt. So he didn't really do anything. And so I called my dad, and I really didn't want to call my dad because I didn't want to involve my dad unless I was done with Ruben, because I knew once my dad got involved, I had to be done.
Because your dad obviously didn't know that how he'd been treating you this whole time.
Yeah, my mom and I had made it, like I had a black eye at one point, and I had made some excuses. I said like someone threw a hairbrush and it hit me, or I don't know, just stupid stuff. But Ruben was pretty good about hitting me on my legs and my head, so that I wouldn't, stuff that I could hide up. Yeah. And so for the most part, like the black eye thing was just more of an accident, really, that he did that. And, but I always had lumps all over my head and bruises all over my legs. But my dad came, he got there, he was like 12 or 15 minutes away, and got there in like 6 minutes, I think. And, like, yeah, must have been driving like freaking 100 something miles an hour. And my dad, like, beat him up really bad. And, like, there was a moment where he almost, like, snapped his neck. And he was like, Destiny, you can't do that to me again. You can't do that. Like, you cannot put yourself in these situations, because I almost just killed that guy. And, so, yeah.
So, your dad beat him up. You guys are done at this point.
We're
He
done.
left that night, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's
Yeah.
left and never came back at that point.
Yes, they're done at this point. And so then I'm going to beauty school. I went back to beauty school
This is my favorite part of the story.
because you're in it. So I went back to beauty school to finish up my aesthetics. And at this point, I'm just committed to being single and working on myself. I'm back in recovery and just trying to be a better person and grow, and going to meetings and talking to my sponsor and working the spiritual 12 steps, and just really trying to be a better person. And at this point, I'm sharing with the kids 50-50, or with my ex-husband 50-50. And I'm really lonely on the weeks that I don't have my kids. And so I'm like, maybe I can just get some like free food and like maybe some movie dates. I really don't want any serious relationships. And at this point, I'm a serial monogamist, but at this point I'm like trying to, I'm trying to just date, you know? I'm like, I'm going to just be a dater. Okay. And so I go on a date with a fireman guy, and he was cool, and like, he liked me, I guess, but I did not like him like that. And I was like, this is awkward. I don't know. I don't think I can do this. And the second guy I met and that I actually like liked was Zach. And so we talked back and forth for a while. And this is really weird, and I never would have done this before, but I don't know. I just, something about Zach, I freaking invited him. We had like, he canceled on me on a date, and I got a babysitter and everything, and you canceled on me. I was so sad.
You never let me live it down either.
I know. Freaking A.
But, I mean, we still ended up married, so.
Yeah. So I invited him over to the house when the kids were there, because we kept, like, on the weeks that the kids weren't there, he couldn't do, I don't know. It was just like we could not. So I finally was like, you know what, just come over. And the kids were asleep. And I can't believe I did that. Thank God you're not a crazy person. And
yeah, you weirdo. What the
I
heck?
know. I know. That's so bad. And so, yeah. And then we started dating. But I don't think, I'd be really interested to hear from you. Like, what was your perspective? Because I don't think that you were really trying to, like, be with me like that. Because you were still, like, talking to other girls.
Yeah, well.
I'm asking. I'm so curious.
My story's on the next episode.
Oh, okay. Next week, guys, we'll figure it out. So yeah, then we started dating, and I remember my aunt really, she calls you her prayer, because she had prayed. She hated Ruben because she knew right away.
She knew everything that was going on.
Yeah, she knew in her heart even before I told her, and she was pissed that I would allow a guy to treat me that way. And because before Ruben, like, yeah, I'd been in some abusive relationships, but I would never, like, I'll go toe to a toe with a man. I will freaking fight a guy. I don't care. I can't tell you how many freaking dudes I tried to fight when I was 13. I'm 5 foot nothing, you know, like, I just never had that. But now, I mean, to this day, I will flinch if I feel like they're, because of PTSD, dude. Like, when I have this certain feeling, my body gets hot and I start to like it gets tingly. Like, my body's like, you better get ready. Like, you're gonna get hit. And we've been together for 8 years. So it's like crazy to me to think like I'm still struggling with that. This, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I only beat you up the first year we were together.
So. Oh my God, he's so stupid. He's never beat me up. So yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I just really excited the listeners get to hear your background. Like, anybody that really knows us knows a lot of your story, but I think it's fun to put it out there. Like, you've been through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important. Like, I think I didn't share my story for a really, really long time because I was embarrassed by it. And it's such a disservice not to share your story with others.
Yeah, I mean, think about the people you can reach, like, through that I couldn't, because I have never been through stuff like that.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, I just want to say, like, I'm just, like, everyone in my life, like, honestly, as much as, and there's so much I didn't even touch on, honestly, right? I feel like there's so many things I'm like, oh, I could have gone back and talked about that and that and that, but we'd be here all freaking day.
Yeah. I mean, we plan on doing this for a long time. We can throw more stories in later.
But I do want to say that as much trauma and much hurt as I have for different people in my life, I really can always see the good too. Like, I know that my life was crazy and I have a hard story and this and that, but I had, like, a lot of good moments and a lot of things that I look at and I'm grateful for. Like, even things that my dad went through that I didn't have to go through. Like, every generation is getting better, you know? And, like, I talked about my dad, and, like, when my grandma was an alcoholic, you know, she really struggled, and she had a really hard time. And then my dad lived with my grandpa, and he lived in a tent on the beach, you know, and I've done that on my own, but I had a house I could go to. So I just want to say that is, like, I think it's important that to acknowledge your trauma and acknowledge things that have happened to you and pinpoint moments where your behavior started so that you can change it. But if you stay in that victim zone and victimhood, like, you'll never get out of it. So I don't think of myself, I have been victimized 100%, but I don't think of myself as a victim. And I do have a lot of grace for my family and all the things that they've gone through, and just gratitude for the things that they didn't put me through, the things that they did heal before they started. You know, because again, like with my mom, there's things that she went through that we didn't have to go through because she did protect us from that. So it's like, I am grateful for that. Yeah. With that being said, we'll see you next week.
All right.